Synthwave or retrowave is the genre of music which captures and celebrates the atmosphere of the 80s. In this video, we are going to make one ourselves. Starting off with the drums, we got some samples from the drum machine Lindrum, which screams the 80s, loaded into Sitala. It's not just Lindrum, I also used drum samples that actually sounded retro enough for me, and then laid down this to get into the mood of the 80s. Let's lay down a bass line. I'm bringing in this plugin called the TAL Uno62, which is modeled after one of the famous synthesizers from the 80s, the Roland Juno 60. And this is how it sounds out of the box. With a little bit of tinkering on the decay of the envelope, it sounds like this. The chorus of Juno 60 is pretty famous, let's enable that. And here is the first draft of the bass line. Now we need to write down the chords. For that I'm using this plugin called the Syntronic by IK Multimedia. Huge shout out to Eve of Beats for suggesting me this plugin. He's also a YouTuber who uses Cakewalk by BandLab. And I did get some valuable stuff from his videos, so do check him out. Moving on. This plugin has emulations of some vintage synthesizers which we can select from here, or we can just go on and select a preset from here. I'm gonna sort the preset to strings, and here we have J60 strings, which is of course a Juno 60 emulation. And if we close this, we can see the parameters which we can control. And it sounds like this out of the box. I'm lowering the sustain of the filter envelope to make it sound more like a pad. Alright, let's lay down the chord progression based on the bass line. Now here is a disclaimer, we cannot automate any of the parameters from Syntronic, probably because it's a free VST. Just giving a heads up. Nope, now I don't like the bass line. So I experimented with the bass line and the chords and ended up this way. Now the chords you heard now are the major 7th and minor 7th versions of the notes in the bass line. Not that they sound bad or anything, but when we use notes that are closer to each other in the chord, they kinda sound great in these vintage synthesizers. Those chords evoke the feeling of nostalgia, which is the core of synthwave. I don't know the name of these chords, I just try out notes and see how they sound together, like you can see me experimenting here. Whoa, I didn't like that last part, so gotta work on that again. In the meantime, hear me out. The Juno 60 has a polyphony of 6 notes, which means we can play at most 6 notes simultaneously on that synthesizer. And that is why I limited the chords to at most 6 notes. Moving on, I added this plugin called Dext, which is modeled after one of the best-selling synthesizers in history, the Yamaha DX7. This is the synthesizer that actually made FM synthesis popular. I chose this preset, which sounds like this, and drew this on the piano roll. Then I started hearing a small change in the bass line, so I wrote it down and it goes like this. Then I started hearing an entirely different section, which this section was leading me into. First I wrote down the bass line for that. Then the chords. Then the bells. I almost forgot to add a scent to the reverb bus from the bells. All that we made till now is being moved to the right so that we get some space for the intro. I brought in the plugin Synth1 for its arpeggiator function. I was hoping to use that ARP in the intro as well, and the ARP that I made sounds like this. I didn't want that much energy in my arpeggiator. I mean, it should fit with the track. So I dialed down on the speed of the arpeggiation. I kind of liked how it sounded for this particular section, but I didn't like how it was for the following sections. So I decided to draw my own ARP pattern on the piano roll. But before that, I wanted to use this preset which I accidentally stumbled upon. I layered it with our already existing bass. That made me want to layer the bell sound with Tal Noisemaker, and I chose this preset. Then I went back to make the ARP pattern. Okay, it's time to arrange the track. I'll be back in a minute. After arranging the track, this is what we have. And the first thing that I want to mention is that I increased the tempo. And the first thing that I want to show you that I added is an ARP pattern, which is exactly the ARP pattern that we made before. But this time with a higher release value for its amp envelope, such that it behaves like a pad on its own. Then I added the other percussion sounds like these. As you heard, I layered the snares with toms because some synthwave tracks does do it. Then here's a fill made of toms. And this is the last element in the percussions, which is a crash. Then we have a preset from Tal Noisemaker. I bounced that and reversed half of it to get this. With that, I actually thought I was pretty much done with the track, but on repeated listening, I felt like it was lacking some warmth in there. And that is when I added these pads. You already saw how we made this pad, which is the Juno 60 synthesizer inside Syntronic. On a side note, you can toggle the mute on a clip, be it a MIDI clip or an audio clip, by pressing K on the keyboard. Then we have Dext with this sound. The name of this preset is Analog Synth, I guess, which you will actually not find here from the get-go. To bring up the additional presets hidden in this text, we will first have to go into this cart, then we open this folder, and then go through all these sets of presets. Here is the Analog Synth that we used. Now all this is the preview of the presets contained in that particular set. If we want to bring a particular set of presets to the forefront, we will have to double click on that set and make it the currently loaded cartridge. Then we have this preset called KB Screecher in Tal Noisemaker. Then we have this Serenity Pad preset in Synth1. It is one among the 25,000 presets that I found over the internet, which I'll link in the description. Then we have this preset called PD Dream of 86 in Tal Noisemaker. In case if you haven't noticed yet, I do have automation on almost all the tracks. Some of them are parameters of the plugin itself, and sometimes it's the parameters of the DAW, like this low pass cutoff of the Pro Channel EQ. Not only on the individual tracks, I also have some automation on the drums bus. The parameters that are being automated here are from the plugins Crush and Isotope Vinyl. And finally, we have an automation of the stereo image on the master track because I wanted to make the intro feel more like a mono signal, and then when it hits the drop, it becomes wide. Alright. Let me set the right mood for the preview. Leave a like if you found this video useful. This is ADK, hoping to see you in the next video. Stay safe, stay healthy, peace out.